Welcome to Bits About Books, the home for conversations with authors of breakthrough books on sales, marketing, and business. I am your host, Shubhanjan Sarkar, founder of Pitchling, the next generation buyer-seller engagement platform, where our mission is to make buying easy. Our guest today is Todd Caponi, and we welcome him back to Bits About Books for the third time. Meet Todd as we speak about his third book, Four Levers Negotiating, the simple counterintuitive way to higher deal values and lasting trust.
So for anybody that doesn't know, I'm a avid collector of sales history. And I know that sounds odd, but my collection here includes, hundreds of books, magazines, even LPs. So, remember the old records from this is, and they go back as late as, I've got 1884, so late 1800s, early 1900s. It's amazing. So many people think that the sales profession really started in the 1980s. It didn't. It's more like the 1880s.
Todd Caponi fell into sales and fell in love with the decision science and history behind it. He has held multiple sales leadership roles, helping build one company into Chicago's fastest growing, another to an IPO, and nearly $3 billion acquisition, and earning a Stevie Award as Worldwide VP of Sales. Todd is the author of The Transparency Sale, ranked by Book Authority among the best sales books of all time, and the award-winning The Transparent Sales Leader. His latest book, Four Levers Negotiating, was released on January 27th. He now speaks and teaches revenue teams worldwide and hosts the Sales History podcast. Now, on to this insightful episode with Todd Caponi. Todd, welcome back to Bits About Books, your third time. Not many people have been back 3 times. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's so great to see you and be back on.
Wonderful. We were just chatting about how your library is growing with the historical content that you have been talking about, right? So how does it look now?
Yeah, it's gotten crazy. So for anybody that doesn't know, I'm a avid collector of sales history. And I know that sounds odd, but my collection here includes, hundreds of books, magazines, even LPs. So, remember the old records from this is, and they go back as late as, I've got 1884, so late 1800s, early 1900s. It's amazing. So many people think that the sales profession really started in the 1980s. It didn't. It's more like the 1880s. And so I love collecting this stuff. I'm on eBay every morning, scraping it for anything new that pops up and bidding and buying just about everything that I can. And it's turned into a museum.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I remember one of your posts some time back saying, not much has changed actually.
Well, no, the lessons that we're learning today, we have learned multiple times over the last 140 years, which is incredible. One of my favorite ones comes from a book that I have here. This is from 1910. So 1910, so 116 years ago. There's 4 words in it that just make me laugh every time I read them. And the 4 words are, buyers know more nowadays. Buyers know more nowadays, right? Like we see that everywhere on LinkedIn, the rise of AI. Back then, they were worried about the rise of mail order catalogs. For example, I have this is a 1908 Sears Roebuck catalog. And you'll notice that it is 1,400 pages long. It's like Amazon in printed form.
Right.
1910, they were worried that the rise of mail order catalogs meant we wouldn't need salespeople anymore, and the proliferation of advertising. And it's so funny that we keep reliving this. I'll end with the lesson on that, though. We keep learning over and over again that more information available to buyers has never made it easier on them. It's always made it harder. And it's amped up the reason why transparency and sales as a service profession over and over again keeps rising to, hey, that's how the profession survives when we're actually adding value and not there to try to pound people into submission. So those lessons are all out there. AI is repeating history again, believe it or not. Everybody's, it's so different. Maybe, but the lessons are still the same because we've repeated this over and over again.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, till AI starts buying from AI and AI starts selling to AI only, and human is completely out of the loop, I think this is unlikely to change.
Exactly. That's how I feel too. There's a lot that has changed about the sales profession, but the proliferation of information is not quite one of them.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's a good segue to get into your latest book. And I want to start, when I read the title, I thought there should be a off before negotiating, right? And it must have been a very conscious decision for you to name it Four Levers Negotiations, right?
Yep.
Instead of Four Levers of Negotiations,
Right.
right? So what made you call the book the way you did?
That's a really good question. The way that I tried to brand this is that this is an approach to negotiating. That there are ultimately lots of approaches, and I can tell you the history of those as well if you want to get nerdy about it. But
Sure.
This is a specific approach. It's four levers negotiating. It's every for-profit company in the world, there's four things that drive their business model. There's four things that drive their pricing model. And when we internalize those and then use those as our approach to communicating, proposing, and negotiating pricing, everything gets easier, trust builds, we discount less, our forecast becomes more accurate, but it's got to be foundationally laid, and there's a little bit of a process to it. It's super easy, but it's an approach to selling and negotiating versus the many other approaches that continue to exist out there.
Yes, I think in many ways, and that's also a question for you. This is a unlikely book after your two books on transparency, right? Yet, when people go into it, they'll see how transparency actually plays out in this book as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and so the point there is, there's so many, but one of the core things is we just talked about this rise of information. It's funny that in one of my books from 1912, 1913, there's a story of a guy that he was selling whatever he was selling. And what ended up happening is that the most aggressive customers, the ones that asked for the moon, in the end, they would get a better deal than the nice customers, the customers that they had good relationships with, because they weren't asking for as much, so they weren't getting as much.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is that the customer that he had a great relationship with and the jerk, they were at some merchant fair and they were talking about, hey, what are you buying? Who are you buying? They ended up figuring it out that, hey, the jerk is getting a better deal than the nice guy. Yeah. And even back in 1913, it was hard to have every customer paying a different amount based on how well or poorly the negotiation went. And it's funny that, hey, buyers know more nowadays, right? The rise of AI exposing pricing models, peer connections, never been easier. Information is proliferating. I just don't think it's any longer sustainable to have every one of your customers paying a different amount based on how good or bad you are at implementing negotiation techniques or how terrible you are at, the anxiety that comes with negotiating. And that requires a certain element of transparency and foundation building so that you start to build that consistency with flexibility in the four things that drive your business. So it is absolutely a transparent approach to negotiating. And I'm probably biased, but I don't think it's going to be an option coming up in the next couple of years anyway.
Right. And it's the thing that actually comes back and it, I guess you would have found this true for even the frameworks that you discussed in the other two books as well, is that while this is very simple to implement, because, what can be difficult about being transparent?
Right.
You tell it as it is. That's it, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing complicated about being transparent. Yet, when I'm talking to people, and I'm sort of asking whether you see the same thing, people find it hard to commit and stay true to a very simple thing.
Yeah, I found over the years of teaching this, so I had accidentally discovered this approach back in 2008. where I had just been promoted into a new VP of sales role. I was a traditionally terrible negotiator, like the hostage negotiating techniques or the psychological word art that I call it, where you say something and then I mirror it back to you and like all that kind of stuff. I was terrible at all that, and when I tried it, it just came off as a gimmick. And so when you talk about simple is sometimes not easy, that's true. The complex stuff I was horrible at. What had happened was I had walked into this room where I thought it was just going to be me and my sales rep and then one buyer from a big, large organization. And what ended up happening is the room was full of procurement professionals, like professional negotiators.
Yeah.
I got nervous. I basically just threw my cards face up on the table. And the cards were based on a conversation I had had with my CFO a couple of weeks earlier about the things that drive our business. And so for your listeners here, I'll kind of lay out the 4 levers for everybody so you know what we're talking about. We walked into the room. I had the feeling I knew what was going to happen. And so I went to the whiteboard and wrote down these 4 things. And the 4 things are simply volume, meaning your business model is based on how much volume people buy from you, how much stuff, product, technology, services. You want them to buy more versus less. So more, better. Number 2 is how fast you're paid or the timing of cash. You want your customers to pay you faster, not slower. Number 3 is the length of commitment, or how long they commit to your products, technology, services. You want them to commit longer, not shorter. And number 4 is the timing of the deal or predictability. There's value in every organization's ability to forecast. You've got investors, you've got to resource these deals, you've got to make strategic bets. Forecastability is really valuable. And so I wrote those 4 things on the board: volume, timing of cash, length of commitment, timing of the deal. Immediately, they went into a story about how they needed a 35% discount. And so traditionally, you'd either go into your value argument, like, we believe that the product has this much ROI, and it's like, stop it. That ship has sailed. Number 2 is the traditional way that most of us do it, which is we start playing ping pong, meaning, how's 10%? They're like, nope, it's got to be 25. Like, how's 15%? It's got to be 20. And then we end up in the middle. And so basically we just gave away 18% of our deal in the form of charity to their bottom line. Yeah. The way this works is just simple to go, hey, remember those 4 things? That's what our pricing's based on. Maybe we can help you get a little bit closer by going through them. Commit to more volume. Your economies of scale get better. Pay us faster, commit longer, help us forecast. Then it becomes this simple, structured, consistent way where you've now delivered your pricing with confidence, and that confidence becomes contagious. And you've given your customer the tools to negotiate their own deal that they can use when they renew, when they buy more, when they tell their friends, when they go to their next company and bring you with them. And now you don't have this race to the bottom that starts with every pricing negotiating being foundationally layered on a bed of lies, which is the way we've traditionally done it.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And that story about Ben and that asking for a volume change, right? I mean, there's one story in the book. We'll get there. But I wanted to also bring it out that it happens all the time that somebody who was not in the room comes in at the end and says, can we halve the deal, or can we get more discount? And then if you don't have clarity about why you are doing something, driving them again back to volume. Okay, if you don't want the volume, we'll go back to that and it would be a different price. And if you stick to it, I mean, not sweat that I may lose that 18,000 licenses as well.
Right, yep.
I think it needs a lot of conviction. And I think sales has to be about conviction. Otherwise, I think everything else falls apart.
Oh, yeah. The second that you start giving stuff away, the second you've told your customer that there's more to be had. Like we've seen that throughout everything that we buy, everything we do, everything we experience. Yeah. And so that story that you're talking about, in case others don't know, is we were negotiating a large deal with a client. And if the deal went through at its size, my sales rep was going to President's Club or Top Performers Club. And so it had gone through the whole process, gone through all the approvals. We had scoped the whole thing out. We were a day before it was supposed to be signed. The signer was the CFO, and he hadn't been involved in any conversation throughout the whole process. Like, never even knew the person's name. The sponsor gets it all the way to the CFO, puts it on the CFO's desk. Apparently the CFO was like, hey, we got to get them to, quote, sharpen their pencil, right? That old stupid phrase. And the sponsor called my rep and was like, hey, CFO wants to talk to you guys. So 3 of us get on the phone. We start to talk through it, and he's doing exactly what you just said. They were going to be buying 36,000 licenses from us. And right there at the last minute, he says, hey, I'm reviewing the deal. I'm reviewing everything. We would like to go forward, but we only want to start with 18,000 instead of 36,000. And, my rep is having right, freaking out because this is going to cost him President's Club.
Yeah.
And again, the simplicity of this is I jumped in and just walked the CFO through the pricing model. That, hey, I understand, first of all, the first step is be a human being, right? Why are you asking to have it? Why 18,000 instead of 36,000 that we had been scoping? And he shared, it's a big number. We want to make sure this works. Some of the logical type of stuff there, but obviously he's trying to reduce his risk. And I simply went through and said, all right, that makes sense. Hey, I know you haven't been a part of the pricing conversations, but your pricing is based on 4 primary levers. Number 1 is volume, meaning how much stuff you're committing to. And you're paying at a 36,000 user level. The pricing is also based on your upfront annual net 30 payment term, a minimum of 1-year commitment. And then we were paying you to help us forecast. And that's actually right now. If you want to have the volume, you can. It just means that the price per goes up pretty considerably because that's quite a drop. And then when you go to add the additional 18,000 later, it's going to be at that higher amount. So your overall investment's going to be a lot higher. I can have Pete, my rep, draw that up for you. But remember, you've got protections in the contract for underperformance. There's warranties. There's service level agreements. If we don't perform, you've got your out that way. If you'd like, we can show you what 18 plus 18 looks like versus just buying the 36,000 now, if that would be helpful. And he's like, send me the pricing. And he hung up on us. And part of the story there is he hadn't heard that story before about what the pricing's based on. He almost didn't know what to do with it. He almost sounded angry about it. And when we shared that honest 18 plus 18 versus 36, he ended up signing for the 36, and we flagged where the warranty provisions were. That next day, 36,000 was signed. Pete went to President's Club. It's easy. You just remember 4 things, and it slows down negotiation. It builds the trust, and hopefully it reduces your anxiety that you traditionally get when you start negotiating or start talking about pricing too.
Yes, and what I've seen, like you rightly pointed out, that you're selling to the user or the user group. You're doing all the 9 yards of, features and capability and this and that and benchmarking with others and so on. And then the procurement guy comes in. Mm-hmm. He has not been part of any of this. He doesn't care. For all you know, because I have had experiences where the procurement guy comes from an industrial procurement background where he's buying coal or he's buying steel. Uh-huh. And he thinks that the same thing can apply.
Yeah.
And I'm not holding any grudge. It's just that he doesn't understand the nuance of buying services.
Right.
And he's saying, I think we can cut it down. No, you can't cut it down because I cannot give you what you want at that level, right?
And it goes back to this idea of, in their organization. So every buying organization in the world, first of all, they want to commit to as little as possible, pay as slowly as possible, commit to the shortest period of time possible, and sign whenever the heck they want, right? That's cool. But I would argue that those buyers, their organizations fundamentally run their business on people buy a lot, pay fast, commit to a long time, help them forecast. And so when we can play our cards in a consistent way, that's why for anybody listening, it's all 4. Don't go, we don't care about this one as much, so we won't. But no. The part of the reason why it works is that it is pervasive across every business to business for-profit company in the world. And so when you have that conversation with them, hey, listen, your organization probably runs the same way. The business model is based on this. We've structured it in a way that you want us to be an ongoing concern, right? To continue to succeed and invest in our products, right? Yes, of course, cool. This is the way that the pricing works. And I can't imagine that you're cool with, all of your products being sold for different amounts based on how aggressive the buyer was, right? Right? Okay, cool. That's the way that we've structured this. It's a consistent approach that gives you the flexibility. If you want to pay us faster, we'll pay you for that in the form of a discount. If you want to commit longer, we'll pay you for that in the form of a discount. If you want to buy more stuff, we'll pay you for that in the form of a discount. But those are the cards. Like, here they are. Tell us when you're ready, right? Like that's the approach. It's meant to be collaborative. It's meant to be consistent. It's meant to be empathetic through the eyes and ears of the buyers, because that's the way their businesses are run.
It's time for a short break. Stay with us. After the break.
Listen, we can't get threatened by lowball competitors. Your price should really relate to what the market will bear for your solutions. In this case, a $34 cheeseburger or $38 if you add an egg and bacon is something that people are willing to pay for, as evidenced by the fact that we've got tons of customers behind us. If McDonald's raises their prices to $30, it would be empty. Nobody would ever go there again.
You are listening to a Business Podcast Network original. Podcasting is the fastest growing content marketing opportunity, which is untapped. We can help you craft your audio strategy and help leverage the wide reach and easy streaming capability that the smartphone penetration provides. It is easy, it is powerful and personal. Talk to us to find out how podcasting can help you build your brand and reach out to your targets like never before. Write to us at bpn@bizcast.in. That is bpn@bizcast.in. Business Podcast Network. Podcasts end to end. Welcome back. I'm Shubhanjan Sarkar, your host for Bits About Books and founder of PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform. Let's dive right back into the episode where we left it. So that brings me to a very interesting point that you also have here, is about the actual original price, right? How do you set that price also will dictate how well this whole approach is received, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a story I tell, and bear with me here, but I was in New York a couple of months ago, and I went there's a restaurant in New York. It's a famous restaurant called Au Cheval, and they are known for their cheeseburgers. Now, this is a high-end restaurant. It's packed every single night. It's hard to get a reservation. We went on a Tuesday night. We tried to make the reservation, and the only time we could get was like 8:30 at night, right? It's that kind of busy. So the place is packed. You go in, you look at the menu. The cheeseburger price is between 34 and 38 US dollars. 34 to 38 US dollars. Like, that's an expensive cheeseburger. Now, when you look at that and go, hey, excuse me, I was just down the street, and there's another place that's offering cheeseburgers, and they throw in fries and a drink, and it's only $8.50. I think it's called McDonald's. It's ridiculous that you're pricing this at $34 to $38. Match their price, or I need to go down the street. They would be like, the place is packed. Like, it took, how long? Everybody's eating these cheeseburgers and paying $34 to $38. It's a ridiculous thing that, listen, they're $34 to $38 because the market tells us it is. This place is packed, supporting it. We could probably, based on how busy it is, we could probably raise the price and get away with it. Now, that's a long way of saying that, listen, we can't get threatened by lowball competitors. Your price should really relate to what the market will bear for your solutions. In this case, a $34 cheeseburger or $38 if you add an egg and bacon is something that people are willing to pay for, as evidenced by the fact that we've got tons of customers behind us. If McDonald's raises their prices to $30, it would be empty. Nobody would ever go there again. So part of the exercise here is to understand what the market will bear while also making your organization a thriving, ongoing concern. Do it logically, because if you overprice, people will stop coming. If you underprice, then you're basically racing to the bottom and burning cash. You've got to understand what your price should be and what the levers should be set at that make your company thrive. Like for ours, we understood, hey, the market is paying this, and that's based on upfront annual net 30 payments, a minimum of 1 year commitment. So our pricing is going to be based on that. But we are willing to pay customers to buy more. We are willing to pay customers to pay us faster. We are willing to pay customers to commit longer. And that becomes your structure. But it all starts with understanding what the market will bear while also continuing to be a thriving organization that doesn't go out of business because you've underpriced.
Absolutely. Now, I need to flip the discussion because I completely missed the first part of our normal discussion about the making of the book. So I have to now go back to that and ask that, you had a very compelling story about why you wrote the first 2 books. Mm-hmm. And I remember that. I'll not repeat it, but it's from your experience of looking at customer trust on 4-star or 3.8-star reviews more than the ones which are 5-star. If you recall that original discussion we had many years back.
Yeah.
What made you shift to writing about something which is not directly about transparency, but the levers of negotiations?
Well, I think a couple of things. Number one is this idea that for me, it was always hard to justify that I needed a different personality to negotiate than I did to sell, right? Like selling was supposed to be about helping customers achieve optimal outcomes and build trust all the way to the goal line. The customer says, yes, I want to move forward with you. And then we are taught and continue to be taught that, hey, you know what? At a subconscious level, at least, I'm going to start lying to you now. Not going to tell you what a good deal is. You got to figure that out. Oh, and as a matter of fact, I learned all I know about negotiating from former FBI hostage negotiators. Like, what? Like, that's crazy. Now, the primary driver then becomes, A, why at the goal line, the most important point of the deal, are we changing personalities, and instead of focusing on a customer's outcome, we focus on our own outcome. Yeah. Remembering that one big way that the world has changed is what I call the as-a-service economy, meaning the deal is no longer the peak. It's merely an early milestone on having customers that buy, stay, buy more, advocate, take you with them to their next companies. I just don't think it's sustainable, like I had talked about earlier, to have every customer paying a different amount based on how good or bad you are at negotiating. And if we're using FBI hostage negotiation techniques, I mean, you don't get to tase your customer and drag them to jail. Like that doesn't even make sense. And it doesn't make sense right now. Now, in my first book, I've got a chapter called Transparent Negotiating. It is the 4 levers, but very small. But it's always been the most popular thing that I teach. I think it's required now. Now, I will tell you one other thing that I've been digging into is I always get asked, like historically, Todd, like who are the transparent, are the negotiating philosophers of the early 20th century that we should know about? I had never been able to find any. And I thought that was interesting, and I figured out why. So when the Industrial Revolution kicks off, late 1800s, and we start being able to manufacture stuff at scale, we get to start selling stuff at scale. What had happened was that there were no regulations in place that prevented trusts or monopolies from taking place. And so we had this run on big companies consolidating, pricing the market, putting the small guys out of business, like just crushing everybody. So you had, in the US here at least, multiple acts that were meant to protect manufacturers, especially the small guys. And it was called fair trade. That also involved the manufacturers were able to set a minimum by which their prices could be sold for. It's meant to protect manufacturers, and fair trade survived through the 1970s. What that also meant is salespeople didn't really have to be good negotiators because there was already a pricing floor. There was no race to the bottom. Defending price was like winning deals was about value and not about price negotiations. 1975 here in the US, the Consumer Protection Act went into place. It took us from fair trade to free trade. And the floor was gone, but it was meant to protect consumers instead of manufacturers. And all of a sudden, we had to learn to negotiate overnight. The last point I want to make on why that's important is that all of the negotiation techniques, like negotiation theorists, came out of the woodwork. And you had your BATNAs and your, getting the yeses, and all these things popped up out of everywhere. Foundationally, it is 2026. How we teach negotiating today is exactly the same as the 1970s, just with different labels, different words, different lenses. It's exactly the same. We've changed everything else about selling, right? About this as a service economy and the feedback economy and the way that we approach things. We haven't changed negotiations in 50 years, like literally 50 years. And so that's also part of it. The deal is no longer the peak. And we have not caught up negotiation techniques with the era at all, like we've done the rest of the sales process. And that's really the driver, is like, this has to be done now. What are we doing?
I do have a follow-up question on this. Do you, while you are doing this, because I know that you would have researched a lot, like you always do, where do you see this is going? Where is this headed, negotiations?
Well, part of the issue here is, like we had talked about earlier, that more information has never made it easier on buyers. It's always made it harder. Will AI be the trusted advisor to buying organizations in the future? I don't know. I always think that throughout history, being a good human, a service-oriented human is always won. Whether it's the proliferation of mail order catalogs and advertising and, all of these things that have popped up, being a good human has always won. It goes back to my second favorite sales quote of all time from The Art of Selling, Arthur Sheldon, 1911, where he says, "True salesmanship is the science of service. Grasp that thought firmly and never let go." Right? It's such a great quote. Well, what we're seeing right now is AI is exposing pricing models. It's starting to expose them more dramatically. Before I engage in a negotiation workshop or training with a client, I go into AI and I ask it all kinds of questions about the company's pricing model and what things should I be asking for and what concessions have been given to certain customers. And it's amazing. For the most part, it's starting to appear. We're starting to see it. It's starting to give me answers. It's starting to coach me as a buyer to know what to ask for. I think that the alternative to four levers, while I'm biased clearly, is if we continue to negotiate the way that we do, I think this proliferation of pricing and negotiating information on AI is going to chase every organization down to the bottom. It's going to crush profits. I think it's going to crush your ongoing long-term value with your clients. And then again, I also was just doing a program for a large cyber tech company. They sell to chief information security officers, so CISOs. And they were telling me, hey, these CISOs are getting together. And they're talking about, what solutions are you buying from who? Oh, what are you paying? What does their pricing model looks like? What did you ask for? What did you get? I just think that the alternative to having a foundational structure that you can deliver and stand behind with confidence is the end is near. Like, again, that's where I feel like it's going, that we've got an opportunity to save our margins and do it in a trustworthy way and not some hard line like the price is the price. No, the price is the price based on these things. Here's the flexibility. You tell me what you want us to pay you for. I think that's where it's going.
Makes total sense. Back to the writing of the book. So when did you decide that this will be the next book?
I think I decided that it was going to be the next book like 5 years ago. I wrote the leadership book in 2022. Given that the Transparent Sales Leader, it's the wrong title. Like you were asking about the title of this one. It's not about being a transparent sales leader. That would be a brochure. Like, just be transparent. That's silly, right? The Transparent Sales Leader is a literal framework for revenue leadership, because nobody had ever taught me one. On a bed of transparency, all optimized by science, right? And I felt like in an era where we had lots of difficulties in, during that kind of great resignation that was going on, we had so many revenue leaders that were becoming revenue leaders because there was nobody else to find that could do it, right? You were a great salesperson, just go. Like, we need people to lead. And nobody was learning how to do it right. And we were having this kind of leadership crisis that was going on. I was like, I got to get this book out. Now it kind of turned my attention to, I've always known that this approach to negotiation was worthy of getting a book out on it. I'd get the ideas out there, just make it easier, lower the anxiety, do it on a bed of transparency. And so I've always known this needed to be written. But you might notice my first book was 2018, second, 2022, third, 2026. So 4 years. Be looking out for 2030 for my next one.
Although you did mention that there was a very small kernel of this book in the first book, how long did it take you to actually structure this? Did you have like notes from your workshops? How did it come about?
Yeah, I've been teaching this since I started using it in 2008. And so the structure of the way that I've taught it has evolved, and I've learned so much, especially like international markets. And there's some intricacies and cultural elements that I needed to learn along the way because I didn't know. And then, obviously all the research, the historical research and all of that, it had kind of boiled up to, it didn't take me as long to write this one because so much of it was in my head. Like, I could sit down and just get my thoughts out there and then edit. I started writing this in September of 24. I finished writing it really completely in the summer of 25, and then it goes through all of its processes. And then it took until the end of January of 26 here for it to come out.
Right.
But the structures, the frameworks for it, I'd been working on for 16 years up until that point.
And you know what? Another thing I loved about what you didn't do was to try and force an acronym out of this 4 levers.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't. I've done that before, though. Like, don't get me wrong. Like the leadership framework. I've got a framework in the leadership book around. I've got a whole section of the Transparent Sales Leader book that's called The Science of Intrinsic Inspiration, meaning the drivers of what actually drives us to show up, stay, do our best work every day. Yeah. And I forced fit an acronym on that one because I wanted to be able to remember it. And it's called the praise model, but like there's 6 things and they all happen to start with those letters. And it just became easy to do. Right. One of the letters in there was a bit of a force fit, I will admit. But to your point, yeah, it's just, we can remember 4 things: volume, timing of cash, length of commitment, timing of the deal. And the minute you do that, negotiation, I promise, will become easier.
And the other thing that I told you, that when you read it, I don't think anybody has to remember, because I think everybody knows that these are the levers.
Yeah.
It's just that they're not conscious and they're not being transparent about it with the buyers. You have not invented anything here. You have just put it out saying, hey, this is really what's going on. And if you do anything else, it'll be like not right. And then that's when you start doing all those ping pong kind of stuff.
Oh, exactly. I don't even remember my CFO's name. That in 2008, I was sitting in our office it was like Fremont, California. And he was just sharing. He's like, here's the things that drive the business model. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Right. And then I get thrown into that negotiation and I know I'm going to get completely boat raced out of there. And I was like, hey, I'll sound smart. I'll share those 4 things. And it turned out to be a framework for negotiating that I never even knew existed. So nothing that I teach is designed to be rocket science. And I will also say that as a multi-time revenue leader, CRO myself, I hated bringing in any kind of training or framework that was going to take 3 days to teach and multiple weeks to implement. And if somebody was sick one day, they're never going to get it. And if I hire somebody new, they're always going to be behind. Like that never felt good to me. I've always tried to design everything to be like, remember 4 things. Practice it a couple of times, you got it. If I come in and teach it and then you hire 10 new hires, there's at least somebody on this team that could go teach it an hour after I taught it. Like it's designed to be that easy. That's the whole point of this stuff. It's meant to be like, of course, like that's silly. The transparency sale is based on that. My first book is, wait, I'm a human. I buy this way. I sell to humans. Why would it be any different? Like, why do I take on a different personality? That all of this stuff is designed to be exactly what you just described.
Absolutely. And another interesting thing that sort of came to me while I was looking at it is that, you can never be intimidated by a group of buyers suddenly coming into the room and you're alone. You have nothing to get bothered about. You say, okay, fine. These are the 4 things. Let's go by this. Right. I think it's so powerful in that way.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's so often people talk about this idea of like, hey, never share the price until the customer thinks it's more. Like that's a 1927 quote and it's horrible, right? Like, no, your price should be the price. Like why would you do that? And the term sticker shock has never been associated with anything good in the history of humankind. Like, so why not at least set a price range early? That piece like, hey, don't share the price until the customer thinks it's more is one. The other one is, don't talk about the price until you are the selected vendor, and then make sure that you're talking to the economic buyer before you talk about that. No, like you can share the 4 levers with the person that gets coffee for the janitor if you want, because the price is the price. It's consistent. Like stop with this whole strategy of pricing and all that kind of stuff. It's like, hey, listen, like you walk into the Au Cheval, here's the menu. This is the price. And if you want to do it a little cheaper, don't get the bacon or the egg on it. Like and that's it. And if that's not going to work, go to McDonald's, go to Red Robin or whatever other burger place you're going to go to. We're not the right fit for you. I don't know why we have to think this way, that this whole thing has to be so strategic. The price should be the price. And one other thing that just struck me, I've been watching this lawyer crime show on Netflix, like binging it. And it always happens that the lies get exposed. Like anytime there's a defendant or something that's a lie, it always gets exposed. Every single time it gets illuminated, we always find out the truth.
Yeah.
Traditional negotiating is all based on lies. It just like we both walk in and set a price expectation that we know we're not going to get. So we start by lying. The buyer sets an expectation of what the price needs to be for them to go forward, which is also a lie. And then our lies slowly get exposed until we come together and, hey, that's crazy. How is that sustainable? Stop lying. And to your point, in any room, you can go, here's the price, here's the levers. Here you go. I don't even need to be in the room, right? You can negotiate this. Tell me when you're done. And I've got multiple stories where that literally happened.
I can totally believe that. I mean, I think this is so powerful in itself. That's why. Final question. Any thought about what is the 1930 book going to be about? Hey,
the 2030 book, yes.
2030, sorry. Yeah.
So it's funny. So right now, what's going on in my head is there is a sales history book from 2004. I think it's called Birth of a Salesman. And it's incorrect in many ways. There's some incredible masterminds of our profession that are completely ignored. We just had International Women's Day here in the U.S. on Sunday. And there's a woman that is the pioneer for women in sales that's not even mentioned in the book. There's so many incredible stories of history. And there's also a piece of, there's at least 3 significant things that sales history got right that we get wrong in our sales profession. And so my thought is, and I ran this by my publisher and he was like, that sounds boring. So I got to work on it. Is I want to write a sales history book that the takeaway isn't just to be a historical book that you learn in like a classroom, but to understand the lessons that sales history could teach us about selling today that would make us all better professionals. A couple of them are, they used to forecast better than we did, and I know why. They used to set quotas more accurately than we did. I know exactly why. And then last is they always had a service mindset, and they didn't see their role as being convincing. They saw their role as helping buyers predict. And like those 3 things alone should be lessons that we should take with us forever. So that next book will likely be a sales history book with lessons for the future of the selling profession.
Wonderful. I look forward to it. I hope it. I really hope it is not 4 years this time. I really hope.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I've got, my podcast is called the Sales History Podcast.
Yeah.
And it's just me monologuing for 14 to 20 minutes on different topics. All the content's already there. I could probably pull it together and work on it and get a pretty good book together pretty quickly. But you can't see on the floor here. I got piles of books I haven't even gotten to yet. So there's still a lot more research to be done to make sure I wouldn't be missing anything when I do decide to write that one.
Bits About Books is brought to you by PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform. PitchLink makes buying easy by enabling high-quality engagement between buyers and sellers through its presentation and discussion modules. Sellers create customized sales narratives using sales collaterals and personal videos, and reach out to prospects through a non-intrusive, buyer-qualified engagement. PitchLink requires no installation or download and holds the entire repository of sales collaterals and buyer-seller conversations. Talk to us to know more about how you can engage with customers without intrusion. Call us on 99021 631 32.
Wonderful. Todd, thank you so much again for coming on the show. And I really appreciate your taking the time right in the morning to talk to me.
Well, I appreciate you doing this at night for you. And I always so enjoy our conversation. So thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, let's do a 4th.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have a fantastic lineup over the next couple of episodes with great conversations on breakthrough books. Subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you do not miss a single episode. Thanks for listening. Thank you for being with us today on Bits About Books, where we talk to authors about breakthrough books on sales, marketing, and business. We hope this conversation helped inform and motivate as we all navigate a rapidly changing business environment. For us, these are enlightening conversations enriched with knowledge and expertise. We encourage you to go out and buy the book to learn firsthand and implement some of the great ideas we discussed today. We hope to have you with us again in the next exciting episode of Bits About Books. If you liked what you heard, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast platforms like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcast from, and give us a rating while you are at it.
This Bizcast original podcast is produced for PitchLink, the next generation buyer-seller engagement platform, where the mission is to make buying easy. Hosted by Subhanjan Sarkar and produced by Rajiv Aditya. See you next time and have a wonderful day.